Right, I now have, hopefully, if someone can confirm on the Twitch stream that I'm on the Twitch stream. Who's on the Twitch stream? No one's on Twitch, okay. It's Dr. Simon McCallum, so Dr. Simon McCallum, to check that there is the Twitch stream. Some of you are on Discord. Hopefully the Discord people can tell me that the Discord is there and connected and working. There's the chat. Yeah, so we have a couple of students who are at distance. So I think one in Nelson, and I think we have one in Asia at the moment, or possibly in Europe. So they're up at late in the night, and maybe one in America. So we're going to have a range of people connected, and I'm talking to them when I look down the barrel of the camera. So I will try and do this in as much gaming ways as I can, because that's my natural environment as a gamer rather than a lecturer. So in this course we have two main staff. So we have myself, I'm the course coordinator. I will be around for the first half of the course and for the first week after the break. So but Alex will start teaching then, but then I'm unfortunately not contactable for a month in the last 4 weeks of this trimester. So I'll be handing over to Alex to make sure that that part of the course runs well. And I'll be back on the 14th of October, which won't help you terribly much. But after that, I'll be able to help you with the final project delivery. Right? So, because the final project delivery is in the exam period. So I'll be able to help with that final push. We have Abigail as a tutor at the moment, and we are discussing having a second tutor, basically because it's useful to have two, so that we have multiple different opinions, and if one tutor doesn't work, you can talk to the other tutor, and also if one tutor gets sick or is unable to attend, we've got a backup, right? So we're getting a second PhD tutor. However, this is a new course, and so no one has done this course before in this way, so you can't expect that much from the tutors, right? Because they're not you in a year's time. I'm really hoping that some of you will stick around and become tutors for this course next year, so that you can help bring that next group of people forward. Who am I? Most of you hopefully have met me before. Have any of you not had me as a lecturer? One. Okay, we might have one or two who are transferring, or one or two have got into the course for various other reasons. Great, so you know who I am. That's all good. I might not have mentioned that I'm neurodiverse. I might not have mentioned that I was an extra in Lord of the Rings. You can buy me as a collectible card if you want to, because that's me as a Frenzy Dunlending. So I'm about a 10-cent card in the game. So I'm like one of the cheapest throwaway cards. So I'm not a particularly foiled card or anything. So, but yeah, I also do a bunch of weird stuff. The me in VR in Unreal is something that I'd like to try with some of you this trimester for the people who are interested in VR game development and multi-user game development in terms of like programming in peers or in teams where you're all connected to the same server. Because you all use Google Docs, yeah? You've all used Google Docs, simultaneously editing, where you've got lots of people online. Have any of you done that with your programming tools yet? Have we got anyone? No? Oh, yep.
My nephew did it on Roblox.
Your nephew did it on Roblox. Excellent. So Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, and I think IntelliJ may have the option as well to do multi-editor sessions. And so if you're using Visual Studio with Godot, you set up yourself as the server, and then other people connect to that code and are simultaneously editing the code with you. So you are pair programming on the same code. It's just like Google Docs, right? You're doing that same sort of thing. This is me doing that with the addition of the first-person VR mode, where you can, in Unreal, go into first person in VR and be editing the world inside the world by standing in VR in the editor. And because it's multi-user, the student operating the game can look at me inside the game engine, right? So I become an I agent, not an artificial intelligence, but an intelligent agent sitting inside your game, right? So we'll experiment with new ways of developing and new ways of programming during this course to understand how game engines are expanding and being developed. This course is designed to understand game engines, right, and how to use them and extend them. This is not a Godot only course or an Unreal only course, or I'm teaching you a tool and to become a great tool user of a tool, right? We're still going to be talking principles. So Alex here, so Alex, you can probably stand up, and I should have made you stand up before. So Alex, you've all had Alex, you also all know Alex, or who's not had Alex as a teacher?
Yeah, like a couple of weeks in Sigma 151.
Yeah, so there's a couple of weeks in Sigma 151. So most of you have seen Alex before. So Alex is coordinating 151 and teaching in this course. And I'm coordinating this course and teaching in his course. So we're kind of, yeah, we're doing this together. So Alex will be talking about the shader languages and graphics and the algorithms to display the amazing stuff on screen, independent of which particular engine you're using, but baked into the engine, right? So I think you're using Godot mostly, or?
You can use any engine pretty much, but I will try to be practical. So
Yeah.
you guys do necessary theory and the mathematics of the graphics of the common one that is used throughout any engine or rendering platform. So you get familiar with the actual, I would say, algorithms and the ways how we implement it most efficient way. So if you have a specific preference for the engine, just let me know. You can just do these examples with whatever.
With what? Yeah, which way to talk. So the idea here is that I'm starting out with the principle that we're teaching in Godot and Unreal, right? Because partly Unreal, we're an Unreal partner. We've got a lab down in Tiaro, VS201, which we've got booked times on Tuesdays and Thursdays for you. So you have access to a machine that runs Unreal, because some of you won't have a machine that runs Unreal necessarily. Well, it might run it, but not well as an editor. And trust me, the 25 or 30 minutes you have to leave it to build shaders the first time you run Unreal on a machine, the weaker the machine, the longer that takes. I've had lots of students who say, oh, it won't run for me. And I said, how long did you wait when it was on 45%? And they go, like 20 minutes. And I said, that's not long enough, right? Wait 2 or 3 hours, then it might start, right? And it's kind of, what do you mean? And it's, well, yeah, your machine's just not very good. So because we know that, we have a lab where you can use machines, but we also will be teaching in Godot, so because that runs on any of the machines you have, right? So you can complete this course entirely in Godot as the tool that you use, but learning the principles, right? So yeah, Alex will pick one based on your feedback as we get close to the second half.
From my side, I'm mainly looking at teaching you guys and giving you the understanding of the background. Let's say what are the mathematical nuts and bolts and the algorithms of shading. So you can effectively use them with whatever engines you like. So Godot, we like it because it's lightweight and it's just like a one single package. So you won't have to recompile a whole bunch of shaders. So you already know what the shader is, but to define it's a program that needs to be compiled and run the graphics guy. So what all these engines, what they are doing at the initialization stage is that they grab all this text file and they pass it through the compiler, and then they create the executables for the GPU drivers to handle and execute. Although, because it's a lightweight, it would be very nice, for the principles of the app. And I can assure you that the further you go with this research, like the graphics development, you'll be working with some sophisticated beasts, not just the Unreal Engine. We have a good partnership from my side. I'm in the rendering, so we good collaborations with Github Digital. So they create physically based renderers, not indistinguishable from photographs. They still render on cloud, and sometimes, like for like a frame, it takes maybe 150 gigs of data to just render a single frame, like on Hollywood. Hopefully we'll get some, guest lectures from that specifically for this course, so they can outline the industry pipeline for the development of that.
Yep. So we're going to have this kind of front half is going to be learning about how the engines are architected and how to start using them. And once you've got familiar with the engines, you've started building stuff in the engines, we then have the sessions with Alex, which is around how to use the pipeline and extend those pipelines and understand what's going on graphically.
Sometimes the graphics code can take only 20 lines of code, but it's very easy to get lost there without mathematics and without algorithms. Not like a regular user space program where you can have thousands of lines of code and everything is straightforward. And that will try to unlock this magic of you understanding the shader code, what they are doing, and what specific graphics algorithms we use to create the nice high-quality effects and paint the lines.
Yep. So, great, excellent, thank you. So we're also in Unreal Engine. We're looking at using GitHub Copilot for you in Visual Studio. So Unreal uses Visual Studio Community, so the big Visual Studio, which has GitHub Copilot sort of as a plugin that's very easy to install. If you go to the GitHub Student Pack and sign up for the GitHub Student Pack, you get GitHub Copilot for free. You don't pay for it. And it will help you code in C++ if you've never coded in C++. How many of you have done C++ programming? Okay, how many of you confident in C++? Aha, good, right, everybody's going to ask you, no. So, no, you're not going to be the go-to for C++, but what GitHub Copilot does, particularly if you look up Copilot Labs and the additional tools, is that you'll be able, it will help you program in Java and translate that into C++, or generate C++ content, and hopefully you'll be able to read that because you understand OO programming, right? So the AI can help you very much in that coding phase. With Godot, you can use, so Bard and ChatGPT and Copilot are all possibilities. I've been using ChatGPT 4 to help me with sort of Godot how-tos and how to do stuff. It works pretty well. And you can, if you connect Visual Studio Code to Godot, use the full Copilot to help you code in Godot as well, right? But the point is, we want you to be understanding how these systems work in general. So the point of the course is the understanding the engines, the detail of how you make a particular engine do a particular thing. That's more up to you, and the AI can help you with that. Tutorials can help you with that. Other courses can be that tool trainer for you, but we're talking those large images. So in this course, we have 3 kind of blocks of work. The first 25% is an intro to game engines. I expect you to take one of the templates and build a simple game in either Godot or Unreal, and extend and play with it and change it and build a very simple, lightweight game. Right? For many of you who did SIGRA 151, that would be perfectly reasonable to build that 2D game in Godot, as your intro to Godot is take what you did in 151, the game you did in 151 as your project, and rebuild it in Godot as this first assignment, right? To learn the Godot engine. Some of you may have done some 3D stuff in processing. Go and use Unreal for 3D, right? Unreal's really good for 3D. Godot's okay for 3D. Unreal, the paper flipbook stuff, really quite challenging for 2D, right? Unreal's not great for 2D, so I'd kind of stay away from that. Possible, but you're fighting against the trend at that point. So if you're interested in 2D, it's more Godot, 3D, Unreal. So that's the first one, is build a simple game to learn the engine. The second assignment, which is due at the end of the course, is an assignment on the graphics pipeline. again using an engine and developing content in the pipeline and looking at the algorithms and how things are done. And there's a large group project that is going to be 50% of the grade. That comes in 3 chunks. A week 7, which is the first week after the break, is where we are forming the groups, and that first 10% is your group pipeline and idea. So the groups have been formed before the break. By the end of that week, we want you to have got everybody on Git, everybody with an asset pipeline, all of the tools set up, everything ready to go for development, and an idea of what you're going to build. Right? In the week 10, that 10% is a functional prototype where you have the game at least operating so I can interact with it. And then from there, the last 30% is your particular contribution to building that game out to being a fuller game / tools that use the engine and explore the technology. Now, I'm not grading you on the enjoyment of that game or how fun it is or how cool it is. It is a technical demo. Right? I do not expect it to be fun. If it's fun, that's great, but I'm not grading that. I want it to be a technical demo. I want you to show off your understanding of the engine and the tools in the engine in this game. Right? The game is a vehicle to demonstrate the understanding of working in a team, working with other people, and working with the engine. Okay? Any questions about that? I have quite a strong, long, complex way of forming groups. You will not form your own teams. I will be allocating teams. However, you'll give me preferences on who you'd like to work with, who you want to veto, what kind of game you want to work in, what engine you want to work in, and then I will spend a bunch of time merging and organising and arranging the groups until I form groups which have the properties I want them to have. Right? So you are more applying for a job in a small game company of 6 people rather than choosing a bunch of mates to develop a game with. Okay? So that's more of what I do with my group work. It's so that I can manage the external students with the internal students and make sure we've got a balanced teams and the teams have an interesting connection, but without you being put on a team with your ex-partner and, you know, you've got to be able to veto some things. So yeah. As I said, I'll use Discord and we'll be doing Twitch streaming, and I'll do everything I can to reach out to you and make sure that you feel engaged and connected. If you don't, tell me and I'll see what I can do to improve that. We have labs set up, so you've got these lectures on Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. The Friday is going to be turned into a tutorial because we'll do the Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 till 12 will be this kind of me chatting, talking to camera and meeting. I won't be here in week 3, so it will be entirely online for me in week 3, but you'll still be in person in the lab. And well, yeah, week 3 and week 6, I'll be virtual me. Oh, yep, you've got to turn off your mic. I should actually probably turn my volume completely down, just to make sure that no one gives me nasty echoes. We have VS201 booked for 3:30 to 5 because I wanted it at the end of the day, because walking down the hill and then having to come up for another lecture is really annoying. I've done that walk 3 times in a day. I don't want you to have to do that. So go down there at the end of the day and then bugger off home, right? So that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The room is only 40, so this class has about 100 people listed in it. A bunch of them haven't turned up today, which I'm assuming is because we're recording and they think that, you know, everything can be done online, so that's cool. But we made sure that you don't have to turn up to all of them, but this is an availability for machines that have Godot and Unreal on them that you can program. And we'll look at having a tutor there either all the time or some of the time, depending on how much assistance you want from us. Help desks, we're going to work out when you want those and how much you want those as we go through the course. And I'll look at having tutors on Discord for a couple of hours a week at a set time, and also just, generally keeping an eye on Discord and giving feedback in a haphazard, occasional kind of way. I also hope that you'll help each other learn, right? And the Discord is a community of learning rather than this one-way direction from me out to all of you. I'm also going to be trying to do this in a fairly agile way. I've not taught this course before, so I don't have a fixed opinion about what I should teach first. I have a guess, I have an idea, I've got a plan. It's not the plan, so I'm quite happy to be changing it. I'm looking at using the SIGRA 252 GitLab repo as a way of you voting on lecture issues, because just like a proper agile development environment, you put your topics into a backlog and then you groom the backlog to pull out the topic that you want to work on. Right? So I'll be following that approach. I haven't gone and put them all in because I've been struggling with getting Godot playing nicely with Visual Studio, and there's some interesting debug port issues that I was having. The schedule can be changed by you for this part. So Alex has a bit more formal. He is looking at the shaders. He knows what he wants to approach in the order he wants to approach it. So that's more going to be sort of structured. I'm more flexible, which is also a bit dangerous. So we'll see how that goes. If it falls apart and it's horrible, I will just revert to my normal plan and just tell you what you're going to learn. All right, so we'll see how that goes. This is a slide that you had in first year. Do many of you remember much about first year, or did the drinking destroy it all? Because you've had like a whole summer of doing other jobs and things, and so we had this slide saying what game engines are doing, and I started talking about game engines in first year. This is where we actually start digging into using those game engines. So we'll start at how things come in, the inputs, how things update, the outputs. We'll look at various languages. Now we've got an example there of C++, and an example from Unity. I will talk about Unity in this course. We do not have, and we don't also teach in Unity as well as Godot and Unreal. 2 is already one too many. 3, just too many for me to keep abreast of all of that development. Can you do the course in Unity? Yes. Should you? Probably not, because we'll find it much harder to grade your work, and we're not going to offer you any support for anything that goes wrong in Unity. Right? So I wouldn't recommend it. At this stage, I have used Unity, I understand Unity, I use Unity for many years, so if you want to talk to me about Unity you can, but it's not the official supported language, okay, or tool. If we look at the languages where we're teaching, and you can see that Unity combines 2 of the ones above, so it's not adding more in terms of general language learning. Unreal has blueprints, which are interesting and somewhat unique way of doing development. It's node-based, which is very different to the standard programming languages, and it uses C++ underneath. If you are wanting to do Unreal, so can I just get an early show of hands, just so I get the weighting? How many of you are wanting to primarily learn Unreal Engine? Right? And how many are interested primarily in Godot? Good, so I've picked about there's like 2/3 to 1/3-ish there, so that's cool. So a bunch of you will be learning about blueprints. I will talk about both engines because I'm trying to extract that meta-level understanding of the engines rather than just the details. But we will show examples and blueprints. I will teach you all how blueprints work, even the people in Godot, because it's useful to understand that way of programming, because game engines have that kind of tool layer where they're not focused on just helping the people in this room. They're interested in being part of a team of people, which includes artists and includes designers and a range of audio people, etc. Right? So there's this big wide range they're appealing to. So you've got to understand that this isn't tuned just for programmers. This is a wider use tool. So blueprints are a useful example of that. There's also C++ underneath an Unreal Engine. Godot has Godot script, and you can also program in C#. I, at this stage, would recommend using Godot script because the examples in most of the tools, and you avoid a bunch of the boilerplate which just gets in the way. So I would recommend using Godot script for Godot, or GD script. And for Unreal, I'm going to force people who want to learn Unreal to do both C++ and blueprints. You have to show how you can at least program a single function in C++ and expose that to the blueprints, so your blueprint can call that function, so you know so you have built that tool chain, so you can do both. And once you can do that, you can then choose, oh, I will want to do this particular function in C++ because it makes more sense in C++, or I will want to do this shader implementations part or this texture mapping in Engine and Blueprints because it makes more sense there because I can see what's happening. Right? So once you've built those two parts of the tool, you can then make an informed choice over whether you're primarily working in Blueprints or primarily working in C++. Game companies that I've talked to always do both. There's a bunch of stuff that's just better in Blueprints and there's a bunch of stuff that's just better in C++. So you use whichever bit is better for what you're trying to achieve. And Godot, if you're doing C# stuff, you are a bit lower level. In Unity, they used to have Unity script, but they moved to C#. Underneath, it's better to program in C++ for their plugins. And if you're wanting to experiment with other languages, there are lots of plugins now. And Lua is one of the older languages that describe logic that you can plug into these game engines, right? So there's also a chance of looking at other scripting languages and how they plug into games and how they can be used to help AI programmers or artists or other people interface with the low-level content that you are developing inside the engine. Again, as I said at the top, focus on understanding and principles. Right? That's just the kind of, as I see the difference between a Polytech Learn Godot course and the university engine programming course. Right? If you just want to learn Godot, just do a low-level Godot. There's lots of good tutorials online, right, for just learning Godot or learning Unity or learning Unreal. But we'll try and look at that higher level and look for those transferable understandings. So one of the techniques I've used for this is where I go through some of those tutorials and I pause them and I explain why they're doing particular things or how that relates to the other game engines you could be using. Right? So it kind of says, yes, you can just manually follow through, click. You know, you've all done those tutorials where you click the buttons and it says click this button, so you click that button and you type this in, go here, press on that thing, drop this in. So you do those. Yes, you're nodding, that's good. Sometimes that doesn't mean you actually understand why you were doing what you were doing. You were just being good and performing the task in the way that it told you to. So what I want to do is step away from that very mechanical, just do what I tell you and it will work, to the why am I doing this? How does this relate to other engines? How does this relate to what the engine is actually doing? Okay, so that's what I'll be looking at. So tools, we're using 5.2. I believe we've updated the lab to 5.2, and Visual Studio Community 2022. So if you're doing this on your own machines, I expect you to download all of those. We are using Git. I will use Git extensively. How confident are you in Git? So how many of you are very confident using Git? How many of you are terrified by using Git? Good. All those people terrified about using Git, you will learn to use Git, right? Because in this course, you submit using Git repositories. You will fork templates, you will develop, and then you'll submit, right? This is all code is in a repo. I don't expect to see naked code wandering nude around my computer, right? I want it in a repo, I want it protected, I want you to understand the purpose of using version control, and I expect all code to be in version, right? So you will have some form of source control. We are going to be using our VUW ECS GitLab repo, so that's where you'll be developing your work. We have LFS, so we have large file storage. You will also be expected to use LFS correctly and have things in LFS, because Unreal Engine gets enormous, and so you need LFS so that you don't blow out the repo manager. And there is also a GitHub Enterprise Edition for the university. Have any of you used the Enterprise GitHub at the university? Did you know it existed? No. So as students, you have like a 20 gig worth of storage on an enterprise GitHub server. That is github.wgtn.ac.nz. But they just don't tell anybody about it because the developers want to keep all the space for themselves. But they had to make it freely available to students so that Microsoft would give them the free enterprise level thing. So it's available to you all, they just don't tell you. So I'm breaking the cone of silence and telling you that this resource exists for you to use. The student pack will also help with some of that. I expect you to be using AI as a peer programmer, not as a replacement. Don't use the AI to replace your thinking. Use the AI to help you understand and extend. Right? You should also be able to become much faster, because the AI will solve a bunch of those head bashing against the screen problems that you've had when you've been trying to learn something, because none of the tutorials cover this stuff, right? But the AI is actually pretty good for a lot of those things. So I hope that you'll be using them. It will help you understand by writing comments. It will give you suggestions for code. You can ask it to evaluate and change and comment on code. And you should always understand the code you're submitting. Now, this hasn't always been the case. And a lot of you may have used Stack Overflow in the sense that you'd Google something, grab code, whack it into your project, change the variable names until it compiled, and hit go. Right? And it worked, and so you moved on. Did you understand that code? No, really? It worked, but you didn't really understand what it did. Right? I've seen in commercial products code which says, this code works, do not touch it. Right? Because anybody who tried to maintain it just broke it and nobody could fix it, and so they just have to keep it as this black box, perfect code that you do not touch.
It's quite common.
Unfortunately, it's remarkably common. And it can lead to some pretty horrific things in the end. But that idea of understanding the code you are claiming to be submitting as your code, I do not care where you got it from. If you submit it saying you understand it, I can ask you how that code works. Right? And if you don't know, that then means you don't get credit for that code. Right? However, if you understand it, I'm more than happy for you to use it. Okay? If you don't understand it, just wrap it in the /blackbox/ right? And just say, don't understand. This isn't my bit of code. I got this from somewhere. I got this from someone. They wrote it for me. It's not mine. It just works. I have it there. And because you're using a game engine, there are millions of lines of code in the game engine that you don't understand. Right? So it's perfectly reasonable for there to be chunks of code in your project that you don't understand. You just flag them as not yours. Right? And we grade you on the stuff that's yours. Right? And by yours, I mean that you can modify and change and understand. Okay? Does that make sense? I know that's not the official IP policy, and there are other courses run this very differently, but that's how I run this course. Okay? It's partly because That's how the industry works. Right? The industry works by grabbing code and putting it in and mostly understanding it. Sometimes not. If you want ChatGPT to give you better answers, then and Bing and Bard and all the generatives, they are good for insights. If you include PDFs in the prompts, right? You grab the text out of PDFs, or you grab the text out of the documents I have, or you use Ask Your PDFs, or you upload content into various AI contexts, you get better answers because you direct it towards the level that you want your answers to be at, right? So you can improve the quality answers and suggestions you get by giving better context and by asking better questions. There's a bunch of prompt engineering that can get you much closer to high quality answers and high quality explanations by asking it to work step by step, by asking it to explain ambiguities. It gives you 3 different ways of doing something, so you can choose between them, so you can choose the one that you understand, right? Because you know as programmers, there are a near infinite ways of actually implementing a function, right? So if you ask it, give me 3 examples of how to implement this, you can look at the 3 of them and go, oh, I understand how that one works, and you can use that. Rather than just ask it for how to do this, get it to give you something that's a bit weird, and just accepting, well, that must be the way of doing this, and I'll just put it in, right? That doesn't help you get it to multiple, choose between them, and use that code. And you can set up your VS Code as your Godot editor, which means you've got all the Copilot and all those additional plugins. I'll state again, we're using LFS. This means that you will have a git ignore, which means that you keep some of your files locally in Git, and a git attributes, which will be managed, which manages the LFS in all of your projects. I do not expect to see a project that does not have these 2 files in it, and they are relative to the directory they're in, so they have to be in the top level directory and know where your files are so that they can be excluded in the appropriate way and they can be large files stored in the appropriate way, right? I will give you examples of that. The first labs and tutes have examples of those in them already set up, but I expect you to use Git properly. Unreal 5 keeps updating. We will learn stuff together because I haven't had a chance to play with all the generative tools that they added to 5.2. We'll learn that stuff together because it's new. So we'll just have to share experiences. We are an Unreal partner. There's really good Epic Unreal stuff in the Epic Games community. So I expect you to go there, log in, start looking through the community, start doing labs. These are the sorts of things we'll do if you're doing Unreal in the lab sessions. I want you to treat blueprints with respect. They are not a hacky spaghetti stuff I can treat badly and just throw at the wall. We understand that layout is like white space. Magic numbers are still a problem. Don't just randomly leave numbers in nodes. Promote them to variables, name them, and build them properly. Treat it with respect. Use comment blocks where you highlight areas and collapse things down to functions so you don't get like this massive sheet of a huge amount of stuff where it can actually be, oh, there's this function and there's this function and this function, and those 3 flow, right? So I expect you to treat it properly rather than programming everything in main. Hopefully you've stopped doing that, putting everything in main and just having a huge main. Have you done? Okay. If you haven't, then this is the time you have to stop doing that. So if you look at blueprints, you can see this is the sort of thing where you have a comment block wrapped around a function. These are the sorts of things we'll be working with. And if you have a look, you can see that just like the tree at the beginning of the lecture, to cycle us back around and have a callback, that is a piece of math being done with no execution thread. Right? This doesn't have any, there's no execution happening here. This is just the description of the relationships between the inputs and those output variables. Right? Only when you have an execution that needs the output would you grab that output. But by making this function, you can have an input and output that will transform the x and my variable into a return value. Right, but you can see that's a maths syntax tree, yeah? The minus and the multiply and a plus and a sign function and a random variable coming in. These are all, like, it's just code. It's just done in a tree structure rather than in single sentences. The last thing I'll say is this course is about your learning. You're learning it around these engines. I want you to have control. I will get you to weight the individual components of your assessment. You will pitch some game ideas. Now, I'm not grading you on those game ideas, but if you have game ideas, I will want to see those so that we can form some ideas of the kinds of games people want to make, so that when we form teams, we have some ideas, okay? So I want you to come with your choices and what you want to do. I will also change what I'm teaching based on how you're learning, because I haven't taught this course before. I don't know how fast we should move or how slow we should move or how much you can take in or how much you feel is kind of going too slowly or going too quickly, right? So I will adapt what I do week to week based on your feedback to me. So please, please, please tell me how it's going and tell me what you need more of or what you don't understand. And as Alex said yesterday, in the first year, we also need a class rep. So if anybody is interested in class rep, can you come and see me? And so we can get one of those on board quickly so that that person can also give me anonymous feedback from you where you want to say, Simon, can you wear more blue clothing or something? But you don't personally want to tell me that. So a class rep can be your voice when you want to be anonymous. Use the Discord. If you are available this afternoon, we're not having a formal shoot this afternoon, but I will be down in VS 201, so that's down in Tiaro, so down the hill, and in the design, in the building there, up to the second floor, so the first set of stairs up to the second floor. It's the first lab as you kind of come up the stairs, turn and move that way to the sort of south side of the building. It's the first lab there with 40 Windows machines in it. So I will be there from 2 just to get you to see if swipe access works and those sort of things. And you can have a look around and start talking to designers and things if you haven't talked to them down there before. And we'll start integrating you with the design school, because in third year, the follow-on course from this one, you'll work with the designers in your teams. So this one, it's just programmers in your teams, so we don't expect any design or art. That's great. Next year, it will have designers in your team. Though I tell you what, Leonardo AI and other AI tools make your art pretty good now. Without having to be an artist, you can get some pretty good assets. So, okay, that's the end. Are there any questions? I have 1 minute. Yep.
Will the slides be uploaded?
Will the slides be uploaded? Yes, the slides will be uploaded. I'll put them both in Nuku and in the wiki at the moment, just because I'm interested in which ones you want me to use. Do you like Nuku? Do you want me to do everything in Nuku? Do you like the ECS wiki? Do you want things in the wiki? We're leaning towards doing Nuku because we'd like to learn Nuku ourselves. So I'll try and put it both in both places, but we might swerve to Nuku over time.
I'll say I like the page because it doesn't take like anything to load a page every time.
All right, you like ECS because it's just faster than Nuku. Yeah.
Much more convenient.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Have a great Tuesday. Right, and I'll just jump into the Discord. Hey.
I would be interested in golf classroom.
Awesome. That's okay. So I'll come back to that chat. But bye people online. Hopefully that you heard what was going on. So 4 of you there. So I shall. Yep. Oh, come in and take over from me. Yeah. Take over. I just have to stop streaming. Stop.